Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a seriously fascinating tension, the friction between the mathematical, almost guaranteed probability of extraterrestrial life and the baffling, completely unexplainable anomalies flying around in our very own atmosphere. We're going to look at some hard numbers first, and then, well, we'll contrast them with some heavily documented, totally puzzling military encounters. It's going to be a wild ride.
It all really goes back to this simple but incredibly profound question: where are they? The legendary physicist Enrico Fermi casually dropped this at a dinner party back in 1943. He basically realized, hey, if advanced interstellar civilizations are out there, they absolutely should be detectable by now. So why on earth does a cosmic neighborhood look as totally untouched as a pristine wilderness preserve?
Part 1. The Great Fermi Paradox.
To really grasp the scope of our cosmic neighborhood, we gotta start with the hard astronomy behind star formation. Think about this number for a second: 880,000. We estimate there are roughly 880,000 good stars in the Milky Way alone. And by good stars, I mean perfect replicas of our sun, stars that don't have some massive binary companion tearing up planetary orbits, and that evolve at the exact right rate to potentially harbor life.
So, if the real estate is there, how might a civilization actually spread across all that space? Researcher Eric Jones actually mapped this out using 4 quantities of interstellar colonization. First, you start with an optimum population. That's just the stable carrying capacity of a system. Then you have a smaller starship-building population with the actual resources to look outward. You factor in their overall growth rate, and finally, a tiny emigration rate, meaning just a small fraction of people actually packing up and leaving on starships. The crazy thing is, even if interstellar flight is just a super marginal activity for a few space enthusiasts, the math yields a completely mind-blowing result.
Look at this. Human traveling at just a fraction of light speed, an advanced civilization could sweep across the entire Milky Way in what is essentially an evolutionary blink of an eye. If their ships are only going at 5% the speed of light, an expanding wave of settlement crosses the whole galaxy in 90 million years. If they take colonization seriously and push it to 10% light speed, that timeline drops down to just 6 million years. Now, in the 14 billion year history of the galaxy, 6 million years is literally nothing. It's a rounding error. So, mathematically speaking, the galaxy should have been completely blanketed by intelligent life millions of years ago.
Part 2. The Missing Evidence.
Okay, so if the galaxy could be colonized that incredibly fast, we really have to ask why our own planet looks so completely untouched. Because a visit, even one millions of years ago, would leave a massive footprint. Earth is essentially this phenomenal, natural library that's perfectly capable of preserving history in dirt and rock. Our geologic record beautifully captures ancient meteor craters. We've literally dug up 300,000-year-old campsites in the French Riviera that show exactly how early humans arranged wooden poles and chipped stone tools. Yet despite all that preservation power, archaeologists have never found a single shred of non-terrestrial evidence on the ground. When it comes to the dirt, the Earth is definitively silent.
Part 3. The Lakenheath Bentwaters Incident.
But while the ground is quiet, our skies tell a remarkably different story. Let's look at a dry, clear night in England, back in August of 1956, where military personnel faced something utterly inexplicable. It kicked off at the Bentwaters Royal Air Force Station. Radar operators suddenly tracked a target rushing in from the sea at several thousand miles per hour. And over the next few hours, these targets didn't just fly by. They stopped, they hovered, they changed course in an instant, triggering a massive military alert that pulled in ground observers, airborne pilots, and multiple radar stations all at once. To put this into perspective, in 1956, the absolute best human jets were barely struggling to push past Mach 1. But the targets these radar operators were tracking, they were moving between 2,000 and 4,000 miles per hour. And they didn't bank or turn like a conventional airplane either. They would come to a dead stop from those insane speeds, just hover there, and then dart off in sharp right-angle trajectories. That completely defies everything we know about aerodynamics. So an RAF Venom interceptor jet is vectored in to check it out. The pilot actually gets visual contact, he sees this bright white light, gets a solid radar lock, and moves in for the intercept. But then, suddenly, the object just circles around at an impossible speed and positions itself directly behind the fighter jet. For 10 solid minutes, it literally glues itself to the pilot's tail, effortlessly matching every single violent evasive maneuver the pilot tries to pull. And all the while, ground radar operators are just watching this entire terrifying cat-and-mouse game unfold right there on their screens.
Part 4. The B-47 Pursuit.
And you know what? The mystery only deepens. Fast forward just 1 year to September 1957. An Air Force B-47 was relentlessly paced by an unknown object for a staggering 450 miles across the Gulf Coast and Texas. Over the span of 45 minutes, this highly equipped military aircraft wasn't just seeing some weird light out the window. They were actually receiving powerful, anomalous 2800 megahertz radar signals originating from the exact same position as the object they were looking at.
What is absolutely fascinating here is the undeniable triangulation of data. We're talking human eyes, specialized airborne electronic equipment, and completely separate ground radar at Dallas-Fort Worth, all recording the exact same impossible physics at the exact same time. At one point, the glowing object, which the pilot described as being as big as a barn, zipped dead ahead of the bomber. When the pilot finally dove at it, it vanished. But it didn't just disappear from human sight, it disappeared simultaneously from the plane's monitors and from the ground radar.
This quote perfectly grounds the data for us. As one radar operator on the ground noted, whenever we'd lose it, we'd all lose it. This completely 100% rules out the possibility of independent equipment malfunctions or just some optical illusion. You can absolutely have a broken radar screen or a tired pilot seeing a mirage, for sure. But you simply do not get a simultaneous multi-sensor verification of a massive object maneuvering and then vanishing at the exact same split second. As atmospheric physicist Dr. James McDonald pointed out in his analysis, you can't just explain this away as an atmospheric radar duct or a flipped circuit. It is real data.
Part 5. Science and the Unknown. Which brings us to the ultimate paradox of this entire explainer, how the mainstream scientific establishment actually decided to handle this baffling radar and visual evidence. I want you to look closely at this glaring contradiction in the official Condon report. When their own committee investigated that Lakenheath Bentwaters case, the lead investigator literally wrote down that the rational behavior of the UFO suggested a mechanical device of unknown origin was the most probable explanation. Right there in ink. Yet, Dr. Condon's final conclusion and recommendation to the scientific community and the Air Force was to just drop the subject entirely, arguing that further extensive studies simply couldn't be justified. So we constantly look to the stars and wonder why they're so quiet. Yet, when confronted with hard, multi-sensor military data showing seemingly intelligent, physics-defying technology right here in our own atmosphere, the scientific establishment just chose to turn a blind eye. If the math tells us we shouldn't be alone, and our absolute best military radar systems are telling us we might not be alone, why are we ignoring the echoes in our own skies? It's a provocative thought to leave you with, and I really hope this explainer has given you a completely new, data-driven perspective on a truly profound scientific mystery. Keep asking questions.